your net worth is defined by your network. So the 5 people that you surround yourself with are usually determinant of your success. And I've had people, they've been jettisoned because they certainly were not contributing to my growth. For everybody out there, if you have a group of friends that are not helping you grow, it doesn't make any sense to be with them anymore.
Get ready to tune in to stories of average men striving for greatness, to become the leaders that are needed in their homes, in their career, and their communities. This is the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast.
What's up, guys? It's Scott with Brotherhood of Fatherhood. Today I have with me Eric Mitchell, and we're going to talk about some real stuff. It's going to be awesome. But first, I want to give a shout out to Bone Frog Coffee. If you've not tried this, it's effing awesome. Like, I don't even know how to explain how good this is. And I'm not just saying this. I met the owner, Tim, and his staff. Phenomenal people. The purpose behind this is phenomenal. But most importantly, from the very start, they partnered with some of the top coffee roasters in the world, and did it right from the start. So they sent me some of this, and it's ridiculously good. And I like coffee. In fact, I have black coffee. You probably can't see it. Oh, I spilled it on my desk. So I have black coffee here from Bone Frog in my Brotherhood of Fatherhood mug, now on my desk in a pile. Eric, what a fun show for you to drop right into, where I dump coffee all over my desk.
It's
How you
real.
doing, brother?
I love it.
So I'm going to be doing this whole interview with this puddle in front of me, which is going to be an interesting experience. I'm sure I will stick my hand in it at least once, but so I'll just lick my hand. So if you guys are watching this, you get a little bit of an entertainment otherwise, because I love coffee. And I saw you have your mug too. Rad. You know, I want to tell a story about these mugs. This is the way to start. So I didn't just like buy mugs to put my logo on. And some people don't understand, like, these are like, you know, your coffee shop size. Some guys are like, I want a man mug, a big mug. But here's the reason I picked these. I did all this research. And these are the kind the restaurants use, because if you drop them, they don't break. They're super resilient. And I was like, oh, that's a load of malarkey, but I'm going to get them anyway. I've dropped these so many times and they just bounce off the ground, and they're ceramic. They're your typical mug. So that's why I got them. They gotta be man proof. Like, if you drop it, it's gotta last. So, I don't have many of these left. So if you want one, guys, you need to shoot me a message. So thanks for repping, man.
I love it. And the shirt.
Oh, you're wearing your shirt. That's kick ass. Yeah. Those are comfortable,
they really
aren't they?
are.
Holy cow. I love that blend. It's a tri-blend shirt, and I think I only have like 8 of them left, and that's it. That's all. I got a whole new line of designs I'm coming out with, and that traditional OG Brotherhood of Fatherhood shirt, that's it.
I love it.
If you got one, you got one. What's up, brother?
Oh, wow. I was so glad to talk to you about, just life in general, and how quickly things change. And it doesn't matter what what season of life you're in. I've noticed, I'm getting ready to turn the double nickels, 55 in December, and with a 12-year-old son, and just a lot of really amazing things have happened in them. Literally, Scott, like the last month of change.
Wow.
And that, I think that's an important thing for everybody to realize. It can happen very quickly, but trying to turn what you kind of perceive as obstacles in your life into these kind of even life-changing opportunities that happen. So
yeah. That's, I got really pumped up when I talked to you, because we hopped on the phone. We talked about podcasting, of course, which I love. But then you started kind of just you actually started that way. You just started telling me what was going on, because I asked, and I'm like, this is what we need. We need men to take obstacles head on. Stop sticking your tail between your legs, or whatever term you want to use, and get to it. And I'm going to tell my bison story again, because I'm going to tell it every day of the year. I mean, I'm like on a mission. The bison, when they see a storm coming, they know they have one job, and that is to run straight for it, because if they run straight for it and through it, they will be in it for less time, and they will get through it with less damage. Cows, cattle, whatever you want to call them, will go the opposite way in fear, and they'll end up running with the storm and get battered and beaten and either come out ill or dead. And so I have this thing is like, we must be the bison. We must race towards the storm. Now we got to do this with our brains. We got to be smart. And, how many times have you seen bison completely alone? I'm going to answer the question. Very rarely. They go in herds. Even the males will stick back a little bit, but they're still within distance of that herd. Brotherhood is your herd. The Brotherhood is your herd. You need to have men on your side going straight forward into the storm with you. Eric, you're going through a storm. And what I saw when I talked to you, what I heard, and I see it in your eyes when I talk to you, is I am triumphant because I've done this. So there you go. I've led you in. So tell everybody what's going on, because I'm like, you tell me one thing and then about your son and custody and these things. And then you went into the business. I'm like, holy crap, that would have sidelined almost everybody I know having this business thing happen. And here you are doing this double thing. And there's probably more to it than that.
It's so funny. The whole thing, with my son, I can relate to this really incredible story. And I love the bison story. I've been relating that one to my athletes for a long time. And storytelling is such a critical part of everything we do. And, for any, adult men out there, I think sometimes we won't connect necessarily with the culture we're around and how important culture really is. So even when I would do my NFL combine work with these guys, they would sit down and they'd say, wait, we're not done yet, right? We're doing story time, right? We're going to do, and that's so for all of us. And what I love about, and I've been really, really diving into all your podcasts and many other podcasts, is this cultural feel, how well you express culture. So how I get to that is, so my son, he at first was an Eagles fan, Philadelphia Eagles fan. We grew up in the Philadelphia area, but I'm a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So please, nobody, but I grew up with the great 70s team, and it was my connection to my father. And my father passed away when I was 18. And then all of a sudden this year, my son in the spring said, "Hey, I think I'm a Steelers fan now." And I took him to his first game on Sunday, a preseason game, because I wanted to test him, make sure that he would stay for a whole game. And he said to me, "I love this." And he goes, "Wouldn't Papa Cliff be happy that I'm a Steeler fan right now?" And I said, "Cole, he is really happy that you're a Steelers fan." I said, and to me, for me, there's a real emotional and visceral connection to that team as to why I love that team. And it's not because of the Super Bowls, and there's something culturally connective to that black and gold. And that's what I felt. Now I look at it wow, my son, who's, Cole Clifton Mitchell, my dad's name was Cliff, so that's his middle name. And I get to be able to share that with him. And that's so important to me. So for all of you out there, for me, I've been battling a difficult ex-spouse with custody. And things happened. I'm not going to get into everything and I had emergency sole physical and legal custody of my son starting about 2 weeks ago. So that's an adjustment in itself, having 9 years of basically 50% custody. And, but now this is a big adjustment. It's the greatest thing ever to be able to be with my son and, all the time. And, as things cycle through, we'll figure out how that's going to work, where he, of course he has to see his mother, at some, but we got to make sure he's safe. And that's the key to everything right now. So while this was going on, guys, also I had made a big decision a couple of months ago. I own a Parisi speed school and a training for warriors in the Philadelphia area. And I've had that Parisi for 18 years and the training for warriors for 11. And I had made a decision a while back that I wanted to kind of branch out, be a more independent license of those two brands. And I was, in a facility, it didn't go well. It ended badly. And I decided with a snap of a finger, I'm out of there. And it's been over a month and I'm adjusting and growing. But you know what? A lot in the past, when I had bad situations with my business, think about this. I've gone to 3 facilities in 18 years, and facility movement's a big deal. And you're talking about big turf spaces, big gyms, everything where it's sports performance, and leaving is tough. And I did that 3 times. So if anybody wants to talk about how to deal with business partners or what not to do, I certainly could write a book on that. Would love to talk to anybody about that situation. But in the past, I would kind of get a sense of depression and anxiety, and it would hamper my movements. Not this time. This time, it literally snapped me out of my morass, and I was able to then connect and say, hey, you know what? I can do this myself with these brands because I'm a brand ambassador for them, and continue to grow. And I mean, it's amazing. And then to branch out and do more motivational speaking. So all my clients, I've contacted them, and they all own businesses, and they're all saying, hey, we need help with our sales team. You can do this. You can motivate them. You can make them, set their goals and everything. And I've embraced that. So while all this turmoil is going on, I'm not seeing it as that. It is truly opportunities. I love this. So we have a saying in Training for Warriors, last set, best set. That's what you say at the end. Last set, best set. And one of my former students for Training for Warriors, she texted me and she said, Eric, I'm really proud of you. That you've recognized where your real talents are supposed to be expressed. She goes, this is certainly not your last set, and the best set is on its way. It's coming. So that's where I am, guys. It's a lot, but
that's big.
Yeah,
that's big. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to unwrap there. Sure. And where I really want to start is probably something that perked a few guys' ears, maybe some others not so much. I can't relate to the fighting for your kid thing. I've been married 26 years, and in my opinion, in my wife's opinion, that's never changing. We're just going to keep adding years to it. But not everyone is so blessed, and not everybody has been in that type of situation. Sure. And I'm not saying that as like I'm better because my marriage has lasted longer. I'm saying that not everybody has the same like way that we walk through life, and having custody is a big deal. A lot of men really struggle, and I think I would be remiss to say, from everything I've seen, heard, and observed, there is an absolute bias. And I don't know that that's changing much. There's a bias for boys to be with moms and girls to be with moms. Eric, you may or may not know this, but there's research about boys specifically being pulled away from the home of their dad, and the actual longevity and the genetic DNA buildup that happens over just even a few short years of not having dad around. And so the fact that you're sitting here fighting and being that 50% and being so involved, and then when things aren't great, you went to the table. I mean, I'm sure it was not easy saying like, look, this is the situation. I've got to take control here. So let's talk a little bit about that journey, because I think some men are going, whoa, I want my kids, my wife's wacky or whatever. There's so many different elements of that, but what was that like? And just talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're dealing with, and I'm never going to, I won't disparage his mother. I would never do that.
I think that's important.
And the thing is but circumstances being circumstances, it was a long time in coming, where the key for me was protecting him and making sure that he was taken care of in the way that he should be. Now, guys, listen, I have a very strong bond with my son anyway. People were saying like, oh, that's your mini me. And I spent a lot of time in his infancy and also as a toddler, where I spent a great deal of time. Guys, I took off every Wednesday for probably 6 or 7 years just to be with him and be able and say like, look, no work. It's just Cole time, and to develop that bond with him. And it just, the circumstances lend itself to where we are right now. And you're right. It was very difficult. In fact, my lawyer said she couldn't believe it when the order came back from, by the way, a female judge who, looked at it and said that it's 100%. This is what I want as a judge. So the circumstances of what the complaint was enough that the judge looked at that and said, no, this is a safer environment for him. And I'll tell you guys, it's the hard part's when you have a child that's not very fond of his mother. And so when that happens, and all I'm going to always say is, you need to talk to her. You have to respect her. You have to, tell her you love her. And whether he does or he doesn't, it is respectful to do that at the time. And then when he's older, he'll make his own decisions as to what he'd like to do. He's 12, and certain things he's got to do. But the journey, there was no snap decision. It got to a boiling point where it just was unbearable to continue. And I have a very strong partner in my life. She's very much involved with Cole's life. I've been dating Karen for 6 years, and I don't say dating anymore. I mean, we're together, and she's very much involved in his life as well. And it just was finally, for all those guys out there, it was one of the scariest things I ever did to finally pull that trigger, because to be quite honest with you, I was a little bit afraid of his mother. I was. So, to be very honest with you, and it took a lot. But once I realized, wait a second, this is not about me in any way. It's not about a contest between two parents, because unfortunately, I think that's what a lot of times kids become pawns in a contest.
I do too.
And I looked at it and said, when I finally had to have that discussion with his mother, I said, this is not about you. This is not about me. This is about Cole, and I'm going to do what I have to do to protect him. And that was the end of that. That's the last conversation I've had in a month.
Wow. Wow. What you said there is that it was, your child wasn't a pawn. I think that's number one for fathers fighting for more custody or any custody of their kid, or even just to see them, is don't make them a pawn. And I think I think judges will see through that. Like, and you also talk about not speaking negatively about his mother around him. You guys, that's toxic, and it's teaching your children the wrong thing. Like, and that respect level that you talk about, I think these are big keys in this whole process. I think a lot of guys don't think through the fact that there's more to it than just fighting. Yeah. You've got to live at a higher level. You've got to live at a place where her and I may not see eye to eye. She might see me as crazy, and I definitely see her as crazy. And I'm going to let everybody know she's crazy. You're going to lose. You're going to lose if that's your approach. So I think I just want to commend you on that, and the lessons that you're teaching your son. You're teaching your son that like this is a personal responsibility. Take personal responsibility. Control what you can control. Sure. You can't control your mother's crazy or whatever. I'm not calling your ex-wife crazy, but I'm just saying in many situations, guys will say, oh, she's crazy. She's off her rocker. Well, that's not helping anybody.
Scott, there's a therapist that I talk to, and it's via Zoom. And her big thing is that, not to diagnose people, because you just, until they're diagnosed, you don't know. But she calls they're called hijackals. And she says they hijack relationships from you. And I always thought that was really a key element. And
it's really good.
Said, work on you, though. And also set parameters, have very clear. I've learned this a lot. I've learned to say this a lot. There's this conversation is no longer productive. and here's the hard part.
Oh, that's good.
It's really good, because listen, I think men are immediately put on the defensive when it comes to relationships. Tumultuous and, like you said, toxic relationships. We're immediately put on the defensive. And the more you defend yourself, the worse the situation becomes, because it never looks good. And It never looks good. And I've learned that. I mean, I've learned this conversation is no longer productive, to say that over and over again. So, and, it's been an interesting experience at my age. I think guys in their 20s and 30s are experiencing this. I'm in my 50s and experiencing this.
Yeah. Well, there's when you said that you're a double nickel 55, the thing I love about that, I'm 49. Yeah. I believe I'm 49. And I think a lot of guys are like, I'm 30 and I'm failing. My marriage failed and I don't have, custody of my kids. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't even started yet. Like, I mean, guys like us, we're just starting to kind of pick up our pace, and stop comparing yourself to other 20-year-old, 30-year-olds who have more than you, because there's a really good chance they're going to have a big life event happen and they're going to be back at that starting line again. So I think it's really encouraging that guys our age get to talk about these things.
It's true.
Yeah. What advice can you give? We've kind of covered on multiple things. Is there any more advice you can give to guys who are really, really struggling to get more custody of their kids? Because I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. I first, surround yourself with the right support structure. Make sure that you've got the people in place that can help you, and don't be afraid. And what I love about, your podcast with, when you talk about brotherhood, it's like seeking out a brotherhood. It doesn't necessarily, especially in these situations, it can be anybody, family members, it can be friends. They don't necessarily have to be men. They can be females that are going to be really supportive of what you're trying to do. And guys, document everything.
Yeah.
Every little thing that you might think is not important ends up being very important if you're diligent about that. And by the way, that contributes to how diligent you're going to be with other things when you start to document everything. And make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Like, make sure that you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, and not that it's not a petty contest. It's really about, like, do you truly love your kids, and what will you do to facilitate having more custody of those kids? And don't badmouth the other parent, your spouse, your ex-spouse. Just don't do that. Listen, I've been guilty of it. I've done it in the past. And you have to stop yourself and really think and take those emotional checks. And guys, make sure that you've got the people that are around you that will support you. Don't try to do it alone, because it's not going to work. That's what I'll tell you.
Yeah. I think I started thinking about the document everything, and I'm thinking of taking screenshots of your text messages, right? Just keeping those text messages, they're going to disappear. Yeah. Something could happen. The screenshots, but this is what doing screenshots of your text messages, you can't leave out your half of it.
You can't.
And so, take screenshots of those and put them on a Google Doc that lives forever, and just stack them. Boom, 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 boom. Right. I'm talking tactics here. So, but what is that going to do? It's going to make you very, very aware of the words you use and the accusation. Because if you come off as accusational or evil or mean or anything, that's going to work against you. So think of every single thing you say and absolutely assume that your ex is doing the same screenshots. Sure. And may or may not be thinking through the same consequences of their end of the conversation. So, and I this is like probably years worth, because you never know what's going to happen. And I hate to say be paranoid, but I would say be prepared.
Yeah. Completely prepared. I have 9 years of text messages that are screenshotted, just so you guys know that. And, and also, listen, my son has a medical condition too. My son has ARFID, which is a eating disorder. It's called, it's avoidant restrictive intake food disorder, where there is a hypothalamus issue where hunger is not, it doesn't register the same way it does for all of us. So there's a process behind that as well. So dealing with that, and that's been a year of diagnosis, but again, that there's a reason why, that's part of you said about stacking things. That's the reason. There's part of the medical end of it as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. But guys, Scott's right, where you got to be culpable for what you do, and be honest. And if you there's gonna be times if you lashed out via text message too. Don't hide behind saying, well, I didn't do that. And hey, you did. Right. So you can just be honest about it. And that accounts for a lot, because I do think you humanize everything about yourself too. And you're not don't be a victim. That's the one thing. Don't be a victim.
That's a big thing. It is, don't be a victim. And that kind of goes back to the bison story. Yep. Like, I'm not going to be a victim of this storm. I'm going to just take it head on. Whereas the cattle are like, I'm going to get in trouble if I don't run away from this thing. And I think it's just so applicable in everything you do. And the other thing that I think is really lost on a lot of people, men, women, everyone, is the being a victim, the victim card. Like, hey, if your ex is a horrible person, so be it. No one needs you to point it out.
No.
No one needs you to talk about it. Your kids absolutely do not need you pointing out each little thing, because guaranteed they see it at some level, and all you're doing is creating resentment. So I just really tell men, like, really, really assess, take a quick self-assessment, audit your attitude, audit your words, audit your behavior around your kids and your ex and your relationships often, and be your biggest critic on that, and work like your life depends on it, because your kid's life could depend on it.
It's true. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you, I mean, I think I know the answer to some of this, but how did you not fold during all these changes? I mean, you're talking about the business thing, and that would just wreck some guys. I mean, it wrecked them. I mean, you've had these brick and mortars, and a lot of guys kind of identify their identity is wrapped up in those types of things. And here you are making a complete change. And you talked about like stepping into your real purpose, like, the new things you're doing, but that didn't happen like, at the snap of your fingers. No. Let's talk about a little bit about that process.
Well, I think the biggest thing again is falling back on your support structure. And I was very fortunate. Listen, I mean, very fortunate to be in two organizations that the support structure, the two founders are two of my very good friends. So that really helped an awful lot. And also, Karen really, that's my girlfriend, Karen, has really said, hey, you have a talent that is more geared towards motivating people at a grander scale. You should do this. These are the things that you should be doing. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. Training 7-year-olds, there's nothing wrong with that. It's very rewarding, but also I feel I'm at the point now where I want to reach out to more people, such as myself, men in the situation that I'm in, or, it could be anybody in trying to overcome what they feel are their obstacles. The key in that is that support structure, because if you don't have that level of belief in yourself is really tough to maintain. You can say it and people always do. Yeah. Yes, do you have belief? Yes, I have belief. Yeah. But do you really have it? And do you have the people that are around you to help you express what your real purpose ends up being? So I think that's key. That's really key, because if you do see what your real purpose is, all that other stuff, you identify with, your gym or anything or whatever you own, kind of diminishes a little bit when you have the people around you that are going to help you guide. You need your own. You need a coach. You need your own coach. That whole story of, somebody that's going to take you to somewhere better, that's a coach. And if you can, like, I mean, Scott, you don't even know this. Like, I consider you one of my coaches. Like you
that's awesome. Thank you.
You're well. I mean, you are, and it doesn't matter age. It doesn't matter where we are in our life, but it's that person that's going to influence you to be just better. That's what I think it is about. Like, I refused to fold over a gym.
Yeah. Well, and that's just planting your identity outside of what you do or how you do it. Right. And you made a really good point about a coach or a mentor. I was listening to, I think it was Ryan Holiday in an interview with Tim Ferriss. And he said, you need a mentor. Mm-hmm. But the thing is your mentor doesn't necessarily need to know that they're your mentor. He's like, right? Yes. Like, he's like, some of these people are out of reach. I'm not out of reach, but some of these people are out of reach. He goes, I have some mentors because I read every single blog that they write. I watch every single episode of whatever they're putting out. I watch their YouTubes. I listen to their podcasts. I follow their direction and apply it directly to my life. And so there's these guys that are like, well, I can't afford a coach, or I can't, the person I really want isn't available. Well, that's BS. That's absolute BS. Sure, a coach that you're paying is absolutely going to be very motivated to help you and make some massive change. But I love that you brought that up, because I think that's really important. And another thing I love that you brought up was having those people anchored in your life. I mean, that's why, there's several things that cause the Brotherhood to grow. But having a group of men that I had anchored as an anchor in my life, I was going to bring it. I was going to find it. I was going to create it, because I couldn't find exactly what I wanted. So I'm like, I'm going to create this thing. And then Josh had his reasoning to do this as well. And it's been phenomenal because now I'm in touch with people like you. And then, I've been in a lot of pain, and I post that in the group. I have a lot of physical pain right now. It really sucks. And I'm a jerk because of it. And people are supportive. And there's just this thing of somebody calling and saying, hey man, how you feeling? Because, that really sucks. And this is, what are you doing? What's working for you? What's not working for you? That's what every man needs. And you've had it with your circle with your business. You kind of have these really cool circles that you've built through that. But I think every man needs to have that circle. And here's my warning to men out there. It doesn't mean that's your bros from high school or college, because you may need to outgrow them. And it doesn't mean it's your coworkers, because they may be stuck. They may have some things that aren't so great that you're picking up. So look for a group of men who are going to hold you to a higher accord. And that's my thing, is just go and reach up, like search up from you, because that's where growth happens. It sounds like you've always had those people in your life, and you're providing that for other people as well.
Well, it's even, you talk about that. We always say in our kind of our coaching network in Parisi that, your net worth is defined by your network. So the 5 people that you surround yourself with are usually determinant of your success. And I've had people, they've been jettisoned because they certainly were not contributing to my growth. And it doesn't matter if it's it doesn't matter who it is in your life. Like you said, it could be anybody. But for everybody out there, if you have a group of friends that are not helping you grow, it doesn't make any sense to be with them anymore. And that's that's another hard decision relationship wise, that it's the old adage when you talk about being in a relationship, that if that person's not helping you grow, they're not challenging you in any way, it's not going to work,
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's another, I'm really into auditing.
Yeah.
So I do this a lot. I look at my week and like, where did I fail? Where did I succeed? What do I need to work on? And I think men need to audit their circle. Mm-hmm. I audited my circle just a little back. I made a post about this week, and I audited my circle, and I'm like, they're amazing and they're helping me grow, but there's a cap where I'm growing. And so I made the decision to do something that I literally can't afford. And I joined a group of people that are higher, much, much, much higher level than me. And I know that that's going to be a pretty amazing return on investment over time. And so I would just had an interview with someone that's talked about COI. Have you ever heard the term COI?
No. Tell me that.
Okay. Cost of inaction.
Ooh.
So we always talk about ROI as the return on investment. What's the cost of not doing anything? And in this case, like I was like, if I don't put out this $1,000 a month that I do not have, if I do not put out $1,000 a month, what is that going to cost me? Well, I'm never going to get the money to be able to afford this. If I surround myself with millionaires, which is what I've done, if I am in the likes of people making millions and millions of dollars, I am going to learn the skills, the strategies, the conversations, the mindsets, the actions that will actually make this not that hard for me to pay for. So the cost of inaction is staying at or below the level I currently am. So I think we all have to like, and I think you wrote that down, which I think I just did too. When I was interviewing these guys, I was like, holy crap, I got to write this down. This is insane. Yeah. I mean, now I'm like looking at all this cost of inaction over my life. And I think there's a lot of men really suffering at the cost of inaction. It could be that you feel driven to start a business and you're like, if I do that, I'm not going to have any money for years. But what's the long-term cost? Right. What's the long-term cost? What's the cost on your internal being? What's the cost on you thinking for the rest of your life? What if the what if life is not a life to live? It doesn't sound to me like you're living a what if life.
Not now. I did. I mean, I lived in a lot of fear for the longest time. And I think it was, it certainly didn't allow me to kind of see beyond that, what I was afraid of. And oftentimes, right. But the whole point of fear is in the end, like, it's not stopping. Like, you're going to be afraid. I mean, you're going to be afraid to do new things. I mean, scary stuff. But then if you didn't take the steps, there's the cost of inaction. I mean, I look at what my father did. My father, his cost of inaction was death. A massive heart attack, because my dad, I always say this, guys, so, like, he smoked about 4 packs of cigarettes a day. My dad drank a fifth of gin a day. My dad was in a high stress job in publishing, or when he had a job, but it wasn't that. That's not what killed my father. My father he couldn't get past his fear to move forward. And at 46, because he was 46 when he died, that's what cost him his life. And I firmly believe that now. And I've spoken about it before to groups of people, that's what stopped him. That's what ultimately put him in an early grave, was that he just couldn't get past his fear. And you talk about that's the biggest cost of inaction, and I know.
There's a whole lesson right there. That's big. That is so big. I mean, that is, men, you need to hear that. You need to stop, pause, and think of this right now. What is the cost of some things that you are like, what is the COI for you right now? Like, I don't know that there's any man, no matter how successful, that there's not some cost of inaction occurring. And I know in my life, there's been a ton of it. And right now, on this moment, actually earlier, I've made a decision that ends now. My fear of losing income or not having enough to pay the bills is gone. I can't live under that fear. And I'm being very honest. That's a huge, huge mental block for me. And I know that fear has actually kept me from ever getting outside of that. And by all means, I'm successful compared to, what a lot of people would say very successful. But there's still, I've put a glass ceiling on myself. We talk about glass ceilings working for corporate or working for a company. I can only make so much money and then I'm done. I'm stuck. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to your relation. Don't put a glass ceiling on your relationships. Don't put a glass ceiling on your income. Don't put a glass ceiling on your personal growth. Calculate the cost of inaction.
Wow, that's powerful too.
Okay, I'm stepping off that soapbox.
It's power. I mean, that's what it is. You gain. Everybody uses this word. They don't like the word control, but what you're able to do now is, it's like the Hulk. Now you can control, when you need that power. And I think that's incredibly important, Scott. Like, that a lot of people don't take into account. They literally just continue to live in fear all the time. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's obvious to me that you haven't. I mean, you're not now. So you aren't a part of the brick and mortar anymore. And you're still a PARISI coach, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm an independent,
you've been doing that for
license
forever.
owner, and I'm a corporate officer. So I go and I certify staffs all over the country. And it's awesome. I mean, I get to influence people a little differently than I did before. There's more impact behind it. It's adjusting where I don't have memberships to bolster and give me a steady income.
Right.
But that's okay, because
now you got to fight for it.
I can do more now. I can do more. So, podcasting, I can actually dive into what I really want to do and not be, listen, guys, I lived an hour from my facility. So to put this in perspective,
brutal.
Yeah. So I had to buy a hybrid car. In January of 2021, I've put 61,000 miles on that car.
No.
61,000. Now, I drove to Disney World and back. I mean, I've done that, but most of the driving is just compounded 150 miles a day over and over and over again. I don't have to do that anymore. And that it does release a lot of pressure where I feel I can do more stuff. And then being disciplined to do what I'm destined to do. That's it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you cut the cord. You literally cut a cord that was probably holding you back. I just want to say that if you're ever in Texas, the northern part of Texas, Dallas area, and you're teaching somebody or something, you need to reach out. We need to go.
Oh my gosh, yeah, of course. There are several in northern Texas, several PARISIs. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I am absolutely sure. It's kind of a big place.
It's a big place.
but yeah, I like this. You just kind of like put this picture in my head of a cutting a cord. Like you literally cut this thing that was kind of maybe holding you back. 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours in the car a day. Sure, you can do car university where you're listening to, podcasts but you can actually work on family connections during that time. You can actually work on building a business and increasing, your opportunities in that time. And I think, again, these costs all level out, and you have to really look at them. So I'm glad you did that. I think it's going to be exciting to watch for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. So let's one more thing I want to cover. When you're kind of going through some of these big changes, I want to lay out a model for men who are going through some big changes or stepping into some fears or are in the middle of the storm. What was your technique? Did you literally call these people up that are in your circle? Did you send them messages? I really want to walk out a blueprint for people who need support.
Yeah, I think I'm a relationship guy. So I decided to call people and make the phone calls and talk to them first, or at least, or text message them and say, hey, look, I want to talk to you about these different things. And lastly was email, because I just think email sometimes is so impersonal. They want to hear from you. Even if you could say, a couple of people I asked to have coffee or go to lunch and talk to them about the different things, and then not being afraid to say to, even clients, even parents of kids I've coached, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm making some changes. And to every single one of them was supportive. And I mean, every single one. So that phone call connection, because I've been brought up in that world of that the phone really makes the difference in business, that you call. People still want to hear voices and talk to people. So that's the first thing I did, was start calling people. And then you start to text them as well, because some people are obviously more accessible in that regard. And then realize this too, that you're also going to have some people that what I found was my adult community, the training for my training adults, they were less supportive. There were some that were very supportive, but when you affect change in adults, they don't like it. Yeah. So be aware. There's going to be people that they're not going to agree with you, and they're going to, and some might actually completely cut you off. And at first, I was hurt more than anything else about that, because you've dedicated so much of your time and life into them. But then you take a step back and you realize that, there's that, you say it's your COI, and if you take in action and don't do something, at least you let them know where you are and let them make their own determinations. You can't control what people are thinking. So blueprint. I still think it's going to be up to each individual to kind of map out where they are. But I'm going to tell you, as a man, talk to people, really talk to people.
That's what I wanted. What I was hoping you would say. So it's the actual voice inflection on people actually hearing what's going on in your life, and it's just getting over yourself. The ego is the biggest. I mean, Ryan Holiday has "Ego is the Enemy" is a great book, by the way. But it is such a huge enemy of progress for you. And what I've learned, Eric, is when I can't get someone by phone, or I know they're incredibly busy, instead of just texting them, I'll voice record a text.
That's a great idea.
So that they hear, or a video. I want them to see and hear, because all inflection is lost. Yeah. I don't care if you do italics or exclamation points or bolds or whatever. All inflection is lost through email or text. So my suggestion for men is drop the freaking ego. Just get rid of the ego. Become vulnerable, because your buddies are in the same place. And if somebody replies and say, man, you're just a pussy, guess what? That's someone that's no longer in your circle. It's not because you're offended. It's because they're not backing you up. It's because they're not being a rock for you. Hey, if they feel that, if I feel that about somebody, I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to tell you the truth. You're not seeing this right now. From my perspective, you are not seeing this right, and you're acting a little bit like a victim. That's what a friend does. They say, hey, you sound a little bit like you're kind of being a wuss, but here's the way I see it. That's a good friend, someone who's telling you the truth. But it's a really easy to delineate who's going to help you grow and who's not. But I've been really into this video tech. I'll just take a quick video and send it to them, and then that moment of vulnerability can lead to much deeper relationships. But I think we just got to put away,
For sure.
We got to put away that ego. We got to crush
I agree.
it. So yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with the growth and what's going on with you is you're like, I gotta be vulnerable and reach out to the people that care.
Yeah. And I think that word vulnerability, I think, like you said, I mean, men have to realize it's cool to be vulnerable. It just makes you stronger. And we've been conditioned for a long time not to be, and there's strength in vulnerability. I believe that. And if you asked me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have.
Me neither.
Maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But now I realize it's a very important part of being a man, and stepping up to what your true purpose is.
Boy, that's a good place to end. That's really good. Eric, you dropped so many truth bombs and helpful things today for men that are still married men that are not, men that haven't been married. It's these are life lessons that every guy must learn.
I agree.
I really appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you too, more than you know, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah. You guys will have Eric's credentials in the show notes if you want to reach out to him, or if you're really just interested in what's the Parisi School of Speed or what it is that you're doing. Eric's a cool guy, and reach out to him. He's awesome. So with that, I'll say goodbye, man.
Right,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll be talking soon.
We will. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. And thank you for guys like Eric who are just like out here telling it like it is and showing us the way through the storm when it really matters.
Thank you for listening to the Brotherhood of Fatherhood podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, your family, and follow us on social media. If you are a father, make sure you join our Facebook group, The Brotherhood of Fatherhood. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more podcasts from the Brotherhood of Fatherhood.